So welcome to the Better Breathers Club of BC. We are very thankful to the BC Lung Foundation for supporting our this support group. This is a support meeting for those living with chronic lung conditions in BC. And we would like to acknowledge the land on which we're on. So for us in the Lower Mainland, that's the unceded traditional and ancestral territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. And for those of you joining in today, if you'd like to write in the chat box the lands on which you are on, the lands on which you're connecting today, that would be awesome. In our Better Breathers Club of BC, we like to create a safe space. So we feel so that you feel free to share your thoughts, values, opinions, ask your questions. We have a great expert with us today, and to be able to ask those questions without fear of judgment. So we thank you in advance for creating this safe space altogether. The information we share here today is for educational purposes and does not substitute any professional medical advice from your healthcare provider. We'd like to welcome Cindy. And Cindy shared with us that she's joining in from Manitoba. Cindy is an occupational therapist, certified respiratory and tobacco educator. She earned her Master of Occupational Therapy from the University of Manitoba in 2008. She was drawn early to community practice, where she has dedicated her time to helping clients optimize function and quality of life. Her experience spans rehabilitation, mental health, and chronic disease management in primary care, and in particular has a focus on long COVID, ME, CFS, chronic pain, and concurrent mental health conditions. She values a collaborative, client-centered care approach, individualized treatment plans, and empowers clients to pursue meaningful goals. Alongside her practice, she contributes to the development of future OTs and as a sessional instructor, and she's committed to professional growth, holding certifications, as I mentioned, as a certified respiratory and tobacco educator. She's also experienced in pain reprocessing therapy, and acceptance and commitment therapy. Outside of work, she enjoys time with her family. She summers at Grand Beach, kayaking, paddleboarding, hiking, and in the winters likes traveling and cheering on her kids who play hockey and volleyball. So thank you so much, Cindy, for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to share my screen with you too. I do have a bit of a slideshow, but PowerPoint, but we're going to keep it pretty informal. So if along the way you have questions, please feel free to either turn your mic off and ask them, and we can answer them in the moment, or you can save them to the end or put them in the chat. Whichever kind of works easiest is for you. Sometimes I know it's hard to hold on to a question if I'm moving on to a new topic. So I'm really want this just to be educational and comfortable and safe. So thanks again for having me here, and I'll just pop up my slideshow on the screen here.
Thanks, Cindy, and we'll keep you informed if there's anything that comes up in the chat.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So today I was invited to talk about energy conservation. And so I really do look at it as a hidden superpower. So that's kind of what we're gonna focus on today. So a little bit about me. They've already done a great introduction. I think just I think more of my focus now is definitely is mental health. I think what came for me was just the time that I've worked with many different clients and populations with chronic conditions. There was this underlying need for mental health to be addressed, because it's pretty understandable, you know, when you're been diagnosed with a chronic condition or you have functional limitations, that has a huge impact on your life. And so we also, we need to and can address the as an OT can address the functional side of things of how do we make life easier, how do we look at energy conservation, but we also want to look at how it's impacting mental health, because that's a really important part of quality of life. So we're going to do a little poll. We're going to try this, see if it works on Zoom here. So if you had
want me to get the poll going?
Yeah, sure. I can read this out too. So if you had a superpower to help with daily life, what would it be? To stop time to get things done, instant energy boost, calm your mind on demand, or organize anything instantly? And so you're going to have an option. It's a hidden poll, so we won't know what you said, but how many people. Oh, so we're just doing number one right now. That's okay though. Just do number one for right now.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. Let's see.
Oh, they can just answer number one for right now. It shows both questions. Yeah, but that's okay.
Oh, I see. I don't see what you guys see, so that's why I see something different.
So if you want to even just answer the first one, you get a hint at the poll coming up, but that's okay. But so if you have a superpower to help with daily life, what would it be?
Do you see the results?
Not.
Okay, so I see.
You might see the results.
Yeah, so we see instant energy boost is getting 50% of the answers. The next one down would be organize anything instantly with 25% of the answers. And then the next two are tied, stop time to get things done, and calm mind on demand have 13%.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can't see anything. No.
Oh, Teresa, what kind of a device are you on?
Well, I answered the first question and then I put submit, so maybe that's why.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's perfect. That's yeah.
I don't see the result now or anything. So, and I don't have the question number 2.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, maybe I can.
So now, do you see the PowerPoint now?
Yeah, I just see the girl with the Batman suit on.
Okay, that's good. That's all you need to see for now, because we'll redo the poll. The second poll we'll do later on.
Okay. The results.
The results, I think only maybe the person that creates the poll sees. So I think
sounds like
that's maybe why. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, which is okay. That's great. So yeah, so I think it's it sounded like a pretty even split really amongst them all, right? Everybody saw value in each of them. I think as an OT, that's something that, when we're talking about superpowers, I think there is, especially with chronic conditions, is that when we have a chronic condition, whether it's respiratory, whether it's fatigue related, it can really feel like we don't have a lot of agency or a lot of ability or control over what's happening to us. And I think that as an OT, that's part of my role, is to see like, what are our superpowers, right? Like what are, and we do have those. We have the ability to, we may not be able to control everything, but there will be things that we have an impact on that might make a difference in terms of how we live our life. So it is Occupational Therapy Month in Canada. So that's October. So I thought I would do just a little introduction about what occupational therapy is. Even just by a show of hands, are people familiar with what occupational therapy is? Got one person. I can't see everybody. Are in the chat. I don't know.
3 hands are coming up. Yeah.
Awesome.
3 or 4 more.
Okay, good. So just a quick, summary, I think is and how energy conservation fits in, and how is that when we talk about occupation, you can see the picture here talking about all the things that we do in life. And so occupation is not our job necessarily when we're talking about occupational therapy, but it's about the things that we do that bring meaning to us, the roles that we have in our lives, whether that's as a spouse, a partner, a son, a daughter, a friend. It's being able to do the things in life that matter to us. So there's also doing the things that we have to do, right? Getting up, getting dressed, going to work, cooking for ourselves, going grocery shopping, but it's so much more than that. It's about being able to engage daily in activity that is important to us. So I think there was, when we were talking about, even Alan was talking about, that he had this fall and broke his ribs, right? That changes what you can do. It changes how you can engage in activity. And we feel a loss when that happens to us. And I think it's something that's often not acknowledged to the degree that it really does have an impact on us when we can't do those things and we can't engage the way that we have previously. And part of a big focus of occupational therapy is, can we help people to maybe do the activities that they did previously, whether that's through rehab, through support. But on the other side is if there is a possibility that maybe we can't do things the way we did them before, but is there another way that we can do them? Can we compensate in some way? Can we look at the values? So why an activity was important to us? Was it that it allowed us to get out of the house and have social interaction? And if that's the case, how do we create that for you now, but maybe it looks a little bit different? So that is really a big piece of what we do in occupational therapy is what are the barriers to us living our life and having the life that we want, and what are the ways that we can help you to do that. So energy conservation strategies are really a superpower when it comes to that. So no matter what kind of condition or chronic disease that I'm talking to people about, energy conservation comes into play. And that really is part of how do we change maybe how we do things. So for respiratory conditions, I used to do a fair bit of education for people who were their impact had been, or their function had been impacted by respiratory symptoms. And so a lot of it was, how do we first identify what's really changed in your life? How do we make, how do we prioritize meaning? What's the most important thing for you to be able to return to do? And how do we make that possible for you? And a lot of that would come as energy conservation. It can make a really big difference in both improving our daily life and function, but it also can have a big impact on our mental health. So like we talked about, when we're not able to do the things that we enjoy doing, it has a significant impact on our mood, on our relationships with others. And so addressing that and energy conservation is a way that we can do more by actually doing less, if that makes sense. So we're gonna work through that one a little bit more. So what is energy conservation? So let's start even show of hands here, like who has heard the term before?
A little bit tentative hands up. Yep.
Okay. So it's a new, okay, that's good to know though, right? It sometimes it's hit or miss in terms of how many people have kind of been it's been brought up with, right? So that's always insightful for me to see whether that has been discussed. So energy conservation really is about finding ways to use your energy so you can do more of the things that matter to you without overdoing it or feeling completely drained. So it's really a lot about working smarter, not harder. It's looking at how do we use it? We're going to talk about even what energy is then, right? How do we use energy? What is energy, right? So and often we really connect energy with that physical requirement. And that is obviously a very important part, right? Is that physical activity and day to day. We only have so much to use in a day. And that changes when we have a chronic condition. So our ability maybe to run as many errands in a day has changed, or we need more rest. And so what we start to see with people is, and one of the first ways we can make a really considerable difference in people's lives is by looking at, how are you spending your energy? How are you using the energy that you do have? And some of it comes down to choice, right? Is where do I want to use my energy? And then also, where do I have to use it, right? So there's things that we have things in life that are have tos, and we have things in lives that we really want to. And so how do we find a balance between those two things? I think people with respiratory issues, often we see like the physical impact of a respiratory condition, which is we become more easily tired, more easily fatigued. Our lungs have to maybe do more work, have to work hard. Lungs have to work harder to get oxygen. We know that pushing too hard can make our symptoms worse. And that even doing activities, right, takes more energy than it did previously. So things that maybe used to take us and we wouldn't feel tired after, now we do, right? So that it's really having to really look at and reframe what our activity is, how much we're doing, and can we do it differently? And that's actually a really big feat, is thinking about, can I do this differently? Because we as humans, we are very set in our ways. We have ways that we like to do things. And I feel like as an occupational therapist, I see this, I have many conversations with people about even related to cognition, right? I've had, people say, like, I used to be able to do mental math and now I can't. And I will say, I've never been able to do mental math, right? And so I never will be able to. So it's just this different. So is it okay to use a calculator, right? Whereas, like, for me, I always use a calculator because mental math is not my strength. But it's really hard for us to change how we do things. And so it's a bigger challenge, and understandably so, right? And that, I think, fits in with the mental health, is that we don't want to have to change how we do things. It's worked for us. It's what we're comfortable with. So it takes time to allow ourselves to be able to make changes. So one way I sometimes like to think about energy, right, for the day is almost like the battery analogy, right? So if you think of a battery that is, actually, I think I have it here. I'll show this. So if you think of your battery being charged, right? So we have green. Green means we're fully charged, we're ready to go. Yellow means we kind of used a little bit of energy. We're getting to orange, kind of feeling like I don't have a lot left. And then red is like we have used what's left. And we're really kind of running on fumes. And so when we think of our energy for the day, it's thinking of, in some cases, we wake up and have maybe a full battery. Often people with chronic conditions, that's not necessarily the case. I think it's also different when maybe we haven't had a good night's sleep the night before. So every day looks a little bit different as to how much energy that we have and how much we're starting the day with. And also how fast our battery drains. So if you're having to breathe harder or it's more work to do activity, your battery is also draining faster. Because you're using more energy to do those things. So every day looks a little bit different, but in general, I like this battery analogy, and I'm going to get to why after I answer this. I get you to answer this one. So
Okay,
if you're
I'll try to relaunch the poll.
sure, and if not, we can do show of hands, whichever. Yeah. So if your energy level were a phone battery right now, where
Just
would
do
you?
answer 2, question 2.
Yeah.
And
Where
I'll
would
try
you
to
be?
show the results.
And keeping in mind, it's like midday for you guys, right? Nearing kind of mid-afternoon.
Yeah.
So if you could describe it right now, would you be fully charged, 75% doing okay, 50% running on caffeine and willpower, or at 10%, like, please send stacks and a nap? Like, where would you think that you were at? I'll put mine in here too.
Okay. Okay. All right, I think the answers have stabilized. I'm going to end the poll and try to show the results.
Sure. I can stop my share if you need to.
Oh,
there you
do
go.
you see anything?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's looking like the 75% and the 50% is where people
Okay.
are at, with at least one person down in the 10%.
Down at 10%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's every day is a little bit different. Every person is a little bit different, how energy is used. And I like this battery analogy because what I will often talk to people about, and what fits with pacing. So we're going to talk about the 4 P's of energy conservation, and pacing is often a something we've all heard of, right? Is how do we pace activity, right? How do we take our time to do activity? How do we, and so often we'll talk about the recharging of the battery as not something that happens just at night, right? So the goal isn't, hey, let's burn the battery to red, right? And if we think of what happens to a phone battery or any kind of battery, if we drain it right to the end, it takes way longer to recharge. And so the idea becomes, can we rest throughout the day so that we can at least, if not even maintain at, say, the orange or the yellow, but we can even maybe sometimes get back to the green or go from yellow or from orange to yellow by just having a rest. So energy conservation, I like this one too, isn't about doing less, right? It's about doing things differently so you can do more of what matters. And that's a really important piece, because for people, often when I'm asking them to pull back, it's really hard. And they kind of look at me like I'm a little bit crazy most of the time, right? Like, you want me to what? You want me to do less? And that's not what we're asking in the end. In the end, if we can use energy conservation strategies, we often can end up doing more. But it's just by doing things in a more calculated or a more structured way. So what I have up here, so if you're living, I love this roller coaster analogy as well. OTs, we love our analogies, I can tell you that. But if you're living, if you think of your energy on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and so some people, you can see like the good day, like the first graph on the top says, I don't know if you can see my cursor when I move it over, but the good day, right? So what this looks at, as you see, is we can do activity and we can have a really good day, get a lot of activity done, and then we crash, right? We have a pretty significant day of recovery, or maybe 2 or 3 days of recovery that needs to happen. And then the next day we might, or 2 days later, we can have a good day again, but then we end up crashing. And so if you think of it, it's like being on a roller coaster in that case. You can't really plan ahead because you don't really know how long your crash is going to last. You don't really know what's coming around the corner. And so it makes it really hard to live life if you're never really sure what's coming or how you're going to feel. And that's the biggest win of energy conservation and using energy conservation strategies, is that our goal becomes down here, which is B, where we can have a more even keeled energy level that allows us to plan for the future. It allows us to know whether or not, more so, we can participate in an activity 4 days from now. And so there's just there's this, piece of energy conservation where I think people often feel like they're being asked to do less. And that's really not what we want. The goal becomes that we do less in certain moments so that we can do more overall. Does that make sense to people?
Do we have any questions before we move on about what's been presented so far? Just give it a minute for here. No, looks like we're all in absorbing mode.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good. So the other piece is there's different types of activity patterns. We'll just touch on really briefly, is that, so up here, this A, right? This is what we would probably more describe like a boom bust pattern. So you wake up, you're having a good day, you feel good, and you pack that with activity because you think to yourself, I'm not sure I'm going to feel good tomorrow, so I'm going to get everything done today. And what happens is it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Is that we push through and we use energy and we drain that battery right to red, so that the next day it takes us a long time to kind of gain that energy back. So the alternative activity pattern that we talk about then is a pacing activity pattern. And so that's an activity pattern where we wake up and we feel good and we do a little bit, and then we rest, and maybe we do a little bit more. And then we know that the next day we're going to be able to get up and do that again. Because we just know that the way that the body works is that it works better for any of us, whether we have a chronic condition or not. Our body works better with rest. Our body works better if we pace ourselves. So if we know that if we're looking at our work, at our week, and we say we have 3 doctor's appointments this week. And I want to go grocery shopping, and I want to get my hair done, right? Often our first inclination is to be like, okay, well, I'm going to the doctor anyway, so I'm going to go to the doctor's appointment, then I'm going to go get my hair done, then I'm going to go grocery shopping, and then I'm going to go home, with the thought that I'm going to get that all done in one day, so I don't have to do it on the rest. And what happens is that we end up actually just making the rest of the days really difficult, and we don't feel well because we've packed too much into one day. And so that's the ultimate goal of pacing. So one thing I like to touch on with people is this energy pie. So this idea that energy, when we talk about energy, we often talk about the physical aspects of energy. So we talk about what it takes, how much energy it takes to go for a walk, or to get dressed, or to make a meal, or to go grocery shopping. And all those things really do take energy. But what else takes energy is actually cognitive work, emotional energy. And then one that's not on there that I like to add in is social, right? So everything we do takes energy. So if you think of a time where you've maybe had a really serious conversation with someone, and you walk away from that conversation and you feel exhausted, that's because you haven't done it. You haven't ran a marathon in that moment, right? You haven't done a lot of physical activity, but what you have done is used energy, because you've used emotional energy, you've used cognitive energy to be able to sit and listen and to pay attention to a person. So it's really important that we when we're considering pacing and these energy conservation strategies that we're going to talk about, that we recognize that it's not just the physical that we're talking about, that we also have to look at how these other factors can have demands on our energy.
This is fabulous, Cindy. Thank you so much for sharing this. I haven't seen this energy pie before, and this applies to so much. We talk about energy and traveling, and we try to tell people traveling is exhausting, even if you're just sitting in a car or whatever, because you're seeing people, like you say, that social energy. This is such a good reminder.
When I think so working more with the chronic fatigue population, I've learned so much in terms of really recognizing most people have them maybe do some tracking of activity, and they'll come in and they'll say, you know what, physical activity is not, like, the physical part is actually not the most difficult part for me. It's not the most exhausting part for me. It is the cognitive part. It is the emotional part. It is like the social part that is the most difficult for me.
I just wanted to share Trisha's comment. Awesome energy pie would be great to have 2 energy pies sometimes. And there's a lot of agreement here in the chat. Yeah.
That's so true. It would, right? It's just like that. What could my superpower be? Another energy pie.
Yeah. Right. Can we just order more pies, more energy?
Can we just order more pie? Yeah, exactly.
Love that.
That's great. So the other one, I don't have it here, but I can send it to you guys to send out, or I don't know if you've heard of it, is the energy envelope. Is another tool that I'll use with people. And so it's the same idea, but what it does is it says, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, right? So when you're thinking about, the point of it is the same idea, is to think of a task as, like, driving is a perfect example, right? People will say, well, I shouldn't get tired when I'm driving. It's just driving, right? It's not a physical, right? And let's talk about how complex driving is. So driving is physical because you're having to, like, control your body. You're having to press the gas pedals. You're having to be coordinated. But the cognitive demand of driving is huge. And so when you look at driving, it's like every physical and cognitive heavy task, right? So when we're looking at tasks, it's really important to say, like one task itself can be heavy in multiple of these areas, right? So one, going to the, if you look at, what's another good one? It's a good example of even being at a doctor's appointment, right? Or being at a social setting with somebody, right? Is that there is cognitive demands, there's social demands all at once. And so that that when we're kind of looking at activities and how we're going to plan and schedule our day, we really have to take into account that it's not just one area that we're using at that time. So then we're going to get to the 4 P's of energy conservation. So these are the main strategies of energy conservation. And I can provide a handout for this too, because I didn't put it in the slide here. So we have pacing, which we've talked about a little bit already. And so pacing is really balancing activity and rest, right? So often I'll say to people, I am giving you a prescription for rest, right? I am telling you that this is something that you have to do. And I'll bring it back to the battery, right? If we don't take a moment before you get to red, before you drain that battery to rest, we're not going to be able to do as much today. Right. So if we're able to take, and I find people are very hard on themselves. Like often it's like, well, I take an afternoon nap, and I'm like, good, right? That's great that you take an afternoon nap, because that probably allows you to do more in the evening. And so it's really important that we just allow, and rest doesn't have to be sleep. Rest can be just doing an activity that is calming for you. Other examples kind of pacing would be breaking large tasks into smaller tasks, right? So I don't have to cook dinner all at once. I can cook dinner throughout the day. I can prep dinner throughout the day and take breaks in between. And then even for the week, right? How do I schedule my week? And that gets a little bit more into planning, right? So if we look at planning, organizing your day, your week to make the most of your energy. Those schedule demanding tasks for when you have the most energy to do that. So sometimes it's not within our control, right? But if you can have go to a doctor's appointment in the morning versus having it in the afternoon. And saying that, right? I'll often talk to people a lot about communicating that with people, right? Is that, the afternoons are really difficult for me. Or the mornings are really difficult for me. It takes me a long time to get moving in the morning. Could we do my appointment in the afternoon? It's not always possible, but more than not, I feel like people are able to accommodate. Grouping similar tasks together, right? So sitting to fold laundry and watch TV at the same time, right? So just little small things that make a difference. And then planning rest breaks. So that's the biggest part of plan, is actually planning rest breaks before you actually need them. So people often kind of feel like I'll rest when I feel tired. And so when we're thinking back to that battery, if we're waiting till we feel tired, we're probably close to red. And so if we were to rest when we are at the yellow or the orange, it's going to be more impactful and actually help us to do more for the day. And then prioritizing. So I think that comes down a lot to, considering what is your baseline for energy and what are the have tos for the day, what are the I want tos, and trying to balance those the best that you can. And every day is going to look a little bit different for that. One day you may have to go to a doctor's appointment. And so that might mean that you aren't able to maybe do the entirety of something you really wanted to do, but can you do something that's meaningful, but just takes less energy for that day, and save the big meaningful thing for when you have full energy to do that. Prioritizing is not always easy. And it does come down, I mentioned before, sometimes to decisions that we make, right? And if we, I used to work a lot with and doing home visits. And so I would see people in their homes, and we would talk about home care, or having support to do things in the home. And a lot of it came down to energy conservation sometimes, is what are you okay allowing other people to help you with so that you can do the things that you want to do? And how do we ask for that help? And how do we be okay asking for that help? And I think it's really recognizing that we're prioritizing what is most important to us. So some people would choose, some people would have the option of having someone come and help them get dressed in the morning because that took them a lot of energy. Some people would say, absolutely, just send somebody so that I can save my energy for something later in the day. Other people would say, no, that's really important for me that I continue to do that for myself. And so they would, right? And it's all a personal choice when it comes down to it. And then the last is position. So position, I think this, for me, when I think about it, really talks about using adaptive aids and use it as an OT, right? Using the things that create independence, right? So that allow you to save energy. Because if you're, for example, trying to shower without using a bath seat and it takes you longer, it takes you more energy. There's safety, obviously, concerns when it comes to bathing, right? But more than anything, the energy that's used. If we can use a bath seat or a four-wheeled walker or something to help you optimize the energy that you have, I think that that's just a really useful thing that we can do for ourselves. And that and at times, I know, especially with mobility aids, I'll have people kind of, discuss the fact that it makes them feel actually like they're losing independence. But really, when we look at it, it's actually a way to gain more independence, because if we're able to walk further because we have a walker with a seat on it that we can sit on and take a break, we actually can maybe do more than we can without it. So it's actually creating independence.
Do you have any advice? So in terms of position and adaptive aids, do you have any advice on getting over the mental hurdle? So exactly what you're saying, there's that muscle memory there. Like, I used to be able to do these things, not needing any aids. And then some people, can maybe over time recognize that, like, oh, these aids are helping me do more. But that initially, when you're first starting to explore this and you have that sort of mental hurdle to overcome, any advice for that?
Yeah, I think I often will have people connect to their values, and I'll explain that, right? We'll talk about how doing things differently is challenging, but that if we look at what our values are and what we want to do, that if we allow ourselves to at least try to see what that's going to look like, that we can at least give ourselves the chance to see, versus assuming that it's going to be something that takes away from us. People are often really like, and it's interesting for me, even like this conversation about values, right? So values are what we live by. It's what gives us meaning in our life. And for people, they're not able to live their life or find that they feel like they've lost that ability to live by their values. So to do the things so whether it's spending time with their grandchildren or going out for lunch or going out. So we'll have a lot of big conversations around that, is like, is this what's holding you back here? Because it's like, if you look at what it's holding you back from, what's more important, right? Is it the fact that you're going to use an aid, or is it the fact that, what will you allow to be more important in that moment, right? Is it more important to kind of stick to that, I don't need one, I don't want one, or to be able to live your values and to experience those things that you want to experience in life? Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes I can say I'm not successful with people, right? That is not something that they want, but but I do find it effective for a lot of people, is to kind of just change the thought process around it. That's a good question. It's a hard one. It's a good one. Yeah, it's really difficult. Yeah.
Maybe we could stop the screen share here and we can go around the Zoom room, see if there are any questions.
Yeah, do we want to stop the recording so maybe we have a little more free discussion either? So maybe we'll end it there for people joining this as watching the recording later on. We thank you for watching, and we have these gatherings once a month, so please do check it out at poplarpulmonary.com. And we will end the recording for now.